Hi, I'm Chris Urquhart, publisher of Natural Awakenings, and I'm here today with Jessica Schneider. Jessica is the owner of For Your Health Thermal, and in addition to being a certified clinical thermographer, she is also a wellness coach that encourages her patients to take a more proactive role in staying healthy. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly such a pleasure to have human connection again. I can't believe how long we've been in this process. I know for myself, my licensing falls similar to like a massage therapist licensing. We were one of the first categories, if you will, to have to stay at home. So I'm going on week 4. So 4 weeks of being at home has just been so overwhelming. And I was very pleased every evening at 5:30 or so. I watched the press conference that the president does just to see what the update is. And yesterday was the first time that they mentioned how this is affecting people's mental health. And I was very pleased to see them acknowledge that. This is a pandemic. I see a lot of people posting things on Facebook that, you should be creating a new hobby or learning a new language or, starting a new stream of income. And we really have to remember we are not on vacation. I think we're all starting to kind of like surrender and fall into that vacation mode a little bit, but we do have to remember that this was kind of a forced thing, obviously for our safety. But our subconscious does not always understand that. So it's very natural in this type of a situation. I'm 36, and so I was born in 1983, and I have never experienced anything like this before. So I'm navigating through this on my own for the first time in my life. And it's very interesting how our bodies, our cellular memory will remember emotions. So that's one of the great things about emotions is that there's kind of there are set emotions. There's joy, there's sadness, there's grief, there's anger. There are obviously different levels of that, but they are still in general set emotions. And so I really want to encourage people that when you have an emotion come up, whether it's fear or anger, think back to a time where you felt think back to a trauma and think about what you learned in that trauma, the tools that you learned that you can apply now. So for me at the beginning of this, I didn't think that it was going to be possible for our economy to be shut down. My initial reaction was denial. I texted my best friend and I said, there's no way America will stop making money. And so in this, there are different stages of grief, and the first stage of grief is denial. And I couldn't wrap my head around how the economy would shut down. And I remember saying to some friends at the office when this whole thing first started is that the interesting thing about this pandemic is that everybody has 2 main fears. They have the fear of the loss of income leading to homelessness, and they have the fear of chronic illness leading to death or, just severe illness. I said the very interesting thing about this is that this pandemic will hit on both major fears. So for me, I'm not afraid of getting sick, but I'm afraid of being homeless. So it doesn't matter what your fear is, it went across the board and has hit everybody in a different way. When I was growing up, I always had this fear of running out of gas because my grandfather would always keep the gas tank on like just enough to get to wherever he needed to go. I never understood this. So I'm one of those people that always keeps my gas tank above half and running out of toilet paper. Oh. And so So the first time I went to the grocery store, it was the first weekend that this happened. I went with my best friend and I walked in with her to get coffee, or with her husband to get coffee, and she stayed in the car. And immediately, like, the panic that took over me, and I just started crying. And I walked to the aisle and I got my coffee and I handed it to him and I said, I'll be in the car. And I had to walk out immediately. And I got in the car and Christy was like, what's wrong? And I was like, the shelves are empty. Like, do you understand that for the first time in our lives, this is the first time we've seen and witnessed this level of scarcity? And I said, there's no toilet paper, and feeling everyone else's energy. Everybody was on edge and they're afraid and they're rushed and they're irritable and feeling all of that. And so I just sat in the car and I cried. And then I had to just cry for the next 3 days. I just had to surrender to those emotions. And we're not hearing a lot of talk or training or coaching on how to maneuver through this. And after that first week, I said to my best friend, I said, I think what's happening is this is hitting me like a ton of bricks at the beginning, because I'm going to navigate my way through this. And that's when it's going to start to hit everybody else like a tsunami. And that's what has happened. As I have kind of gathered my feet back underneath me again and felt the ground sturdy under me again, now people are reaching out to me in panic and in grief and anger and shock, what I was feeling weeks ago at the very beginning of this.
So what are you sharing with people that are feeling that way? You have some...
Yes, I'm really...
How to navigate?
Absolutely. I'm really encouraging them to have a daily routine. And I encourage this. I try to teach this every single day in my office. So I have two ways I can go with it. I'll start with so I have my grandma Judy. She's Native American. And every summer she would gather up all of her grandkids, fly us out to Topeka, Kansas, to where she is, and drive us all over the country. And we would stop at different Indian reservations and go to powwows and things. And what she noticed with me, and she was a therapist, so I was very blessed to have this experience with a therapist. What she noticed with me was intense anxiety around my unknowns. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I don't know where I'm sleeping. I don't know the people we're going to meet. And all of this comes from childhood trauma. And so immediately she said, okay, we're going to make a daily schedule for you. And we're going to wake up every morning. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to Bill Cosby stand up for 1 hour. And that was her way of and nobody was allowed to talk. Like, it was like church. It was our church. And it was to move us into a place of joy. And then no processed food allowed before noon. So we had to eat, vibrant organic fruits. We had to make sure we were hydrated, and we had to go for at least a 30-minute walk before we started driving for the day. And in that schedule, that gave me enough of a routine that I really started to feel like, okay, I know how the day is going to start. Okay. And it helped me to feel so much safer. So my mom's mom, all of my life, has woken up at 4:30 in the morning and does a daily devotional, reads her Bible, and then goes for at least an hour walk or an hour bike ride. And then she goes and, she runs a company and she does lots of volunteer work and whatnot. So I have taken those, and every morning I start my day. I'm a Christian, so I start my day in the Word, and then I go and I post something encouraging for people on Facebook, and then I go and I start my day. And I also do rebounding, which is a mini trampoline. And rebounding, just a light bounce on a mini trampoline, flushes your lymphatic system, gets the circulation going through your body, wakes up your body, boost your immune system. So I really encourage people to do that every day. Have a set morning routine that involves some form of a spiritual foundation, so that you know that you're loved and you're provided for and you're taken care of. And then a physical routine to get your body moving, get your lymphatic system flowing again, and then try to encourage somebody. I have a lot of clients that are grandmothers, and they'll start their the part of their morning routine is they'll text their grandchildren and just say, I hope you have a great day. I'm thinking about you. I love you. Something so simple can change your mental outlook for the rest of your day. And in trying times like these, those things help us, to just feel more grounded and centered.
So what I'm noticing that, from your wellness coach perspective, in your routines, you're making sure that you have some sort of health habit built into the routine. And then you also mentioned being connected and the emotion of love. So you're building in the foundation to stay healthy. There's also some side effects with feeling these extreme emotions. What kind of side effects do you think you would observe after a trauma or a crisis like this?
Absolutely. So right now, people are very high adrenaline. And so when that adrenaline comes down, a lot of times depression will set in and insomnia. The nervous system gets so out of rhythm, if you will. And isolation can really trigger addiction, because addiction is all about trying to self-regulate the nervous system. So people who smoke cigarettes tend to be really high energy, and it pulls them down to make them stop and breathe. Okay. People who drink tend to be exhausted or really depressed, and it alters those neurotransmitters just to help them, feel a little bit happier just for a short period of time. It's very important that we recognize that when this is over, how it's going to affect us physically and emotionally, so that we can be prepared. A concern that I have is that this is going to be over and then the flu season is going to start. And because of our cellular memory, for a lot of people, this is very traumatic. And so flu season is now going to be a traumatic season for them, because they're going to, their cellular memory is going to go, oh my gosh, this is so similar to what we just went through. So I think it's so important to recognize that we are a three-part being. We are spiritual, we are emotional, and then we are physical. And we have to be sure that we are supporting each system, making sure that we are getting adequate sleep, that we're getting good nutrition, that we're taking vitamin D every day. Sugar is very inflammatory to the system, and it's inflammatory to the brain. So something that I do every day is I do a power shake. And a power shake, one serving of power shake, it's dehydrated greens and stuff like spirulina and alfalfa. One serving is equivalent to 6 superfood salads. Okay, so it's loaded with nutrition. And then also spirulina, powdered spirulina. I put these together, and these are 2 superfoods, and this is my breakfast, and I put it together in water. And this covers all of your nutrition for the day. But the spirulina is so good for the immune system that scientists were looking all over the world, and they were looking at patients with HIV. And they found that Japan and Korea had the lowest rate or instance of HIV. And they were like, we wonder why. And they found that it was because of their intake of spirulina, that it kept their immune system so boosted that when they came in contact with even the most destructive viruses, their immune system was better able to cope. And I want to educate and empower people that there are wonderful foods available to you, superfoods and supplements, so that when you're going into flu season, you can be empowered to make better choices for yourself, so that you're not afraid of this. None of my clients were afraid of the virus. They were all like very confident, like, oh no, we take our supplements, we do our superfoods, we know, we're not afraid of the virus. They were afraid of the isolation. They were afraid of being alone, the anxiety, the depression. The longest living, healthiest group of people on earth are Seventh-day Adventists. And when you look at why, it has so much to do with their sense of connection and community. Nothing supports the immune system as much as joy, reassurance that there's a higher power taking care of you, and community, knowing that you're not alone. And that's so vital. And so what has happened with COVID-19, we've all been shut into our house. And if if you're Spanish and like you live with your grandmother and your aunties and you've got this huge family all on one compound together, then that's a beautiful thing. But Americans have really, we've had great family dissection and separation. And so for myself, I live alone with my cat, and I have been alone for a month. And it takes a huge toll on you emotionally and on your immune system and your adrenal glands. So I've had to implement for myself, and I've had to set boundaries, which is something I've never been forced to do in my career. All of my clients can text me anytime they want. I don't even have like a set time that I give them. And going through this, I recognized I don't have family around me that is refilling my cup. My cup is completely depleted, so I cannot give to you. And because I teach wellness, it would be very arrogant of me to think that I should self-sacrifice myself to support everyone. And so I've had to, for the first time, let everybody know I'm not okay. My cup is empty, and I just need you to support me right now while I get the help that I need and refill my cup. And when I'm feeling better, I will be available to you again. And that's something that a lot of women don't do. There's a lot of shame around that. And also making sure that you get adequate sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things for our immune system and our hormones. And when, particularly women, when they come to me and I say to them, how much sleep are you getting? Oh, I typically go to bed around midnight and I wake up at 5 and I get the kids going. If you put your kids to bed at 7 or 8 and you make them, get at least 9 hours of sleep, why wouldn't you think that you need that just as much? And that's another thing that my grandmothers really demonstrated to me, was going to bed early, getting adequate sleep, not thinking that you're above rest.
Right. Yeah.
And then in the morning when you wake up, you're refreshed to do your daily routine.
So you've talked about how important emotions are to our health, and you've talked about how to manage with routines, so we can integrate good, healthy practices, and also some tips for things we can do to stay healthy, and also how you're finding you've had to make some changes in your own life by setting boundaries and things like that. So, that's kind of a side effect or side benefit, if you will, of this
Yes.
COVID thing. So yeah, we're finding some good things, don't you think?
Yes, I think that this is, once people move past the trauma of it, the sun comes out again and the birds start chirping and singing again, and then you kind of go, wow, look at the good that is coming out of this. More than ever, we are recognizing the importance of human connection. Especially as Americans, we really pulled away from people, over the past 10 years. And it kind of, we would think that pulling away would have prepared us for this isolation. It did the complete opposite. So seeing how much we need human interaction and connection and touch. And also, recognizing if you are a person that would normally run to a vaccine or run to your doctor for an antibiotic, that was taken away from you during this. That wasn't an option. So another great thing that I think is going to come of this is that people are going to take personal responsibility for their health. That's a huge hope that I have, that people will recognize that their lifestyle and their diet, their lack of exercise, their lack of supplementation, all of these things affect you physically. And so the opposite, if you exercise and if you take supplements and if you eat good food, then when flu season comes, or when flu season comes, you're better prepared for it. But also, the people hit hardest by this virus were the people with underlying health conditions, supposedly. Okay, so people with heart disease and diabetes and obesity. So what if we start to take responsibility for our health and say, I am asthmatic, I have diabetes, or I am, 30 pounds overweight. What can I do to turn around these underlying health, these chronic health issues that can be prevented and reversed? There are two incredible medical doctors that I look up to so much. One is Dean Ornish and the other is Mimi Guarnieri. And Mimi Guarnieri was doing over 700 heart stents a year. And she was completely against everything holistic. And she came out of doing an open heart surgery one day, and Dean Ornish walked by her and said, I want you to take your sickest patients that you're not able to do open heart surgery on because they're too sick and they're too weak and they won't recover. And I want you to put them on a vegetarian diet, teach them how to meditate, and teach them human connection. And she was like, get out of here. I'm not a vegetarian. I don't know anything about that. I'm here replacing stents. And he said, humble yourself. And if you're a good physician, you'll do what's in the best interest of the patient. And what she found was that isolation and loneliness causes heart disease more than smoking, drinking, and obesity combined, which is mind-blowing, especially for America, because America will just focus on like one section like diet, and not focus on human connection. And so her first recommendation to all of her heart disease patients is that they have to go and get a dog. That is her first requirement to move forward in treatment with them. And she finds that if they get a dog, which helps with the loneliness factor and depression, and they follow a Mediterranean diet, and they walk for 30 minutes a day, that she can get more done with those changes than she could with all of the Plavix and statins and medications and surgeries available to her. And they have proven this, and they have studies and medical journals proving this. They've actually been able to get Medicare to cover anything that Dean Ornish recommends, any Ornish protocol, because he's been able to prove how effective it is for reversing heart disease.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the dog thing, when you said that, I thought that also gets them outside and walking, because dogs
Yes.
go for a walk. So yeah, that's really brilliant. And I've also noticed you were talking about, as a benefit, taking charge of our health. There's more examples of people taking charge of their health on our roads in our neighborhoods now than ever, because, well, the gyms are closed. So the people who do that are out on our sidewalks, walking and running, and whatever, biking, whatever it is they like. So you definitely have a lot more inspiration, everywhere you look right now. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jessica. I really enjoyed
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So those of you who'd like to contact Jessica, she's at Better Health and Wellness, which is located at 1803 North Wickham Road in Melbourne, Florida. You can learn more about her services at yourthermalhealth.com, and you can give her a call or text her, I believe, at 321-987-7893. So thanks again. And everyone else, be well, stay connected.